Hi, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today is Fixed Blade Friday. And what do we have today? Well, it's my first cold steel. I've gone almost a complete 12 months without talking about cold steel. How did I do it? I don't know, but I did it. We've got a very budget knife by Cold Steel, one of their cheapest. I think the Canadian belt knife is less expensive than this Roach Belly, and I'm not sure why I didn't buy one of those, because it's Canadian, and it is a Canadian design. That design, it looks kind of weird. I'll show you a picture of it right here. So yeah, you can see it's kind of unique. If you have never had one of those or seen one of those, you'll kind of look, what? That's weird. That wouldn't work. And yet it's a very good design that works very, very well, especially as a camp knife and as a bushcrafter style knife as well. Today we're going to take a look at the Roach Belly by Cold Steel, and it comes with a plastic style sheath, and we'll talk about that in more detail, and sort of a plastic polypropylene style handle. It's a light knife to carry around when you're out doing stuff in the bush, or even when you're camping, if you just want a knife for the campsite. Good cooking kind of knife, that kind of usage. You could use it to skin an animal, not too big of an animal, but fairly good size, I guess. There's all kinds of ways to use this knife, and if you're interested at all in this fixed blade, stick around, because we're going to do a full review of the Roach Belly. What a weird name. I don't want anything to do with a roach's belly. But this knife, maybe. Let's talk about the specifics of this thing. The handle here is 3/4 of an inch thick. And then it's rounded all over, which means it fills up the hand quite well. And then it goes down to about 1/2 inch at the end here, and quite a bit smaller from spine to belly as well. So it's a really good feeling knife in the hand. My hands are large size, and it fits very well in there. People with smaller hands are going to find this knife totally comfortable as well. Extra large, maybe not so much. It's going to start feeling a little bit too small for you fairly quickly if you've got extra large size hands. The jimping that's up on here is not too aggressive. It's a little bit aggressive, but it's not too aggressive to get your thumb too sore or tired if you use it for an extended period. Squeezing the knife hard and using it is more likely to feel a little bit awkward and maybe a slightly hot right there instead. Not bad at all, but that's the one spot that comes close to being the first area to get a little bit hot. There's no sharpener's choil. I wish they would have done that. I might just put one of my own in. The spine is not squared off. It's a little bit rounded on all the edges, so it's not going to strike a ferro rod very well. You might be able to rub it against this jimped area and get some sparks going, but it's just not prepared for that. If you were in an emergency situation, of course, I'd use the cutting edge if there's nothing else available to get a spark going, but you really don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. This edge here that I talked about getting hot, potentially, I would try that before trying the cutting edge to try to throw a spark. I've done my own tests with it, and it doesn't work that well, but it works a little bit better than the back. The back doesn't work at all. This is a low-cost knife. You can get it at Amazon. It's one of the cheapest places to get it. $13 US at Amazon.com, $19 Canadian at Amazon.ca. Of course, you can find more expensive places to buy it, but I wouldn't recommend that because money is money. This knife is made of German Krupp steel 4116, which is a very high stainless, stain-resistant steel. It will not rust very easily. Every steel can rust, but 4116 is a very rust-resistant steel. Originally designed for the medical industry, for cutting people open, because you don't want rust on your scalpels and stuff. But it's a steel that's now highly used in the kitchen knife cutlery industry. And there's a bunch of other knives as well that still use this steel. It's a good steel in the terms of its performance. For a budget steel, it works very, very well. Good edge retention, not that hard to sharpen it, and it's a good user's knife if you're going to use a knife a fair bit. Certainly not a super steel by any stretch of the imagination. Let's talk about the specs on this thing. The steel itself is 2.5 millimeters thick. That's 10% of an inch, 1/10 of an inch. The cutting edge is 4¼ inches, so that's right from where my fingernail is to the tip, 4¼ inches, which is 10.8 centimeters. The handle is roughly 4 inches. It's on an angle there, so I didn't go exactly, which is roughly 10 centimeters. And the entire length of the knife is about 8.5 inches, just a bit under 22 centimeters for the entire length of the whole knife. If I hold it lower, you can see the whole thing there. There we go. The weight of the thing, the knife is 2.6 ounces, which is 73 grams. And when you add in the sheath, we're looking at exactly 4 ounces, which is 114 grams. There's a lanyard hole on this knife, which most knives have. And I put a nice orange piece of paracord on here, so if I drop the knife out in the bush or whatever, or at my campsite, it's a little bit easier to find. Plus, a lanyard can be handy when you're using it to help yourself cut things. You put the lanyard around your wrist or whatever you use to, so that you're not going to lose the knife while you're using it. Whatever. Not that big of a deal. Some people like lanyards, some people don't. This knife came fairly sharp from the factory. I did strop it a little bit. I've had it for, I think, about 5 weeks now. And so here's how it cuts paper. Oh, there was a fold right there, and often when a knife catches a fold, it'll start to tear, but it cuts paper quite well. Not a problem at all with the performance of the blade. So yeah, see, it just cuts through this stuff really, really easily. It's not a problem at all to use this knife to slice through. This is a USB cable. You can see some of the glint of the copper in there, maybe. Here's kind of banding, like molly banding, 1 inch wide, and it just slides through that very, very easily. No problem at all to cut using this knife. A double cut with 2 layers of paracord, and it just slides through that stuff so very easily. And remember, this is the factory edge with just a little bit of stropping. How do you wreck the performance of your blade? Well, you use the sheath that comes with the knife. That's how you wreck the performance of your blade. Is that news to some of you guys? Yes, Cold Steel uses what they call Secure X on this sheath and on some of their other sheaths. And it's a glass-filled nylon, essentially. And what it does is it will dull your knife if the cutting edge touches this glass-filled nylon. Because the glass-filled nylon is very abrasive. And since the sheath is nothing but that, you put the knife inside, and it's supposed to rub on this part of the knife right here and grab that way instead of grabbing on the edge. But the cutting edge of your knife is going to touch the inside of the sheath quite often, and it's just going to shorten the life expectancy of your edge, and you're going to have to do much more maintenance than if you had a different sheath. And so remember, we're talking $13 US, $19 Canadian. So what I would suggest if you get this knife is make your own sheath. I still have not made my first Kydex sheath. I'm working on it. I've got the plans for it. I'm working on the plans for it. I'm collecting some of the materials that I need for it. If I get really good at it, I might even do it as a little bit of a side business. So let me demonstrate the edge, and it still works for, you could use it as a bushcrafting knife to create your feather sticks if you wanted to. This is kiln-dried pine, which makes it a little bit harder to make feather sticks than it is on just regular air-dried wood in the wild. But this hollow grind works quite well. I kind of like it, to be honest with you. It's a good knife to use for a wide variety of tasks. I think it's a really good knife to take with you when you go camping because it has so many uses because of the blade shape and style. Great big belly here, so it's really good as a sort of camp kitchen knife. And yet, if you needed to, it could be defensive, against some kind of wild animal because it comes to a really nice point. And of course, it can slice. If you had to, you could use it against defense against fellow humans too. But I don't like thinking about that possibility, although it does happen. And it's good to be prepared for it. It's just I don't like to dwell on it. So it's a good anti-rust knife. It's light. It's easy to use. It's comfortable. Highly resistant to rust, which makes it easy to take care of. By the way, it's made in Taiwan. It's not a... Yeah, so it's like a rat tail kind of steel in there. It doesn't come back to the end of the handle at all. So that's one of the potential negatives if you want a full tang blade. Of course, you're paying less than $20, even Canadian, for this knife. So that tells you why it's made a little more cheaply. So if you're interested in a knife like this, consider getting one. It is a very budget kind of knife, and I don't highly recommend it, but I don't say that it's something to stay away from either. Amazon.com, Amazon.ca. If you like this video, please click on like, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and watch out for all my giveaway videos. I don't have an awful lot of them, but when I have them, they are good. And remember to always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.